Hey guys, it's Samantha. I'm back with the stats video that a lot of you have been waiting for. I'm sorry it took so long. I've been super busy with the summer program that I'm doing for Columbia. Yeah, I actually received some love on the last video and I really didn't expect anyone to see it, so thank you so much for everyone who watched and for everyone who's staying tuned for this video. I got you. I'm gonna reveal all the stats and all that stuff in this video. So I hope you guys like it. Disclaimer, keep in mind that my application was a lot of things and it wasn't just, for example, my SAT score, it wasn't just my AP scores or whatever. It was a mixture of a bunch of things, and that's what got me into Columbia. For those of you who are fretting over getting a perfect SAT score or perfect AP scores or anything like that, or being in 10,000 different extracurricular clubs, I hope this video serves as a little bit of a beacon of hope for you guys to show you that that's not really necessary, as long as you really show who you are and show your personality in your application. That's the fine line between having perfect stats and not a good application versus having mediocre stats but having a really good sense of self in your application. I don't know, I hope that made sense. Let's get to the actual part of the video that you guys came to watch. Hey guys, it's Samantha on a different day from my intro. I just decided to refilm this part because it came out a bit confusing the last time. So yeah, here I am 2 or 3 weeks later. Let's just get started with what I think would be the most pressing information that you guys want to know about my stats, and that's my SAT or ACT score. So I took the SAT, I did not take the ACT because I was going to take it in, I think, December or November of my senior year just to see what score I could have gotten, but I got into Columbia at that point already, so there was no need for it, so I just ended up not going. I took the SAT a total of 3 times and I ended up submitting a super score. So the first time I took it was the spring of my junior year. I got a 1250. That was a 630 in math and a 620 in English. I ended up taking it a second time in August before my senior year, and my goal was to increase my math score. I just studied for math that entire summer, and I ended up increasing my math score by 70 points because I got a 700 in math, so that was insane considering I'm terrible at SAT math for some reason. And I only increased my English score by 10 points. I got a 630. So yeah, the second time I took the SAT, my overall score was a 1330, which is still a huge improvement for my last score. I will say though that I did not study for my first SAT at all. But as you can see, when I did do some studying for math, I ended up getting a 700. And then the third time I took the SAT was in October of my senior year. I focused on increasing my English score then. The last raw score I got was a 1360, and that was a 660 in math and a 700 in English. I ended up boosting my English score by 70 points as well. That shows what a little bit of studying can do. Definitely study for your SAT, don't do what I did. The first time I took it, don't just not study at all, because even the slightest bit of studying could improve your score. I ended up taking the highest of each section, so that was that 700 in math the second time I took it, and a 700 in English the third time I took it, and that equated to a super score of 1400. That being said, I know that that SAT score places me below average in terms of the average SAT score accepted to Columbia, but I hope that my experience and my acceptance shows you that while SAT scores are, yes, very important and you should study for them and try to do your best on them, it is also not by any means the overarching factor that determines your acceptance to Columbia or even to any Ivy League. Do not stress out if you don't have a perfect SAT score. As long as you tried your hardest and you studied, whatever score you got, just roll with it. Don't be scared to apply to some of these top colleges just because you don't have the average SAT score they accept, because I didn't either, and so many other kids that I know did not, and we were accepted. And obviously it's because admissions officers saw something in us aside from our SAT score. I know a good handful of people who got into Columbia with 1300 range and even 1200 range SAT scores. Moral of the story is, don't let your SAT score discourage you, or your ACT score. apply, see what happens. You might end up getting it. Alrighty, so SAT subject tests. I did take the Math 2 and the Biology molecular SAT subject tests in November, I believe. But I didn't end up submitting them to any of the colleges because they weren't like the best scores, and none of the colleges that I was applying to required them, so I didn't see any need to submit them since the scores weren't that great. I was going to retake them in December, but at that point I had already found out that I got into Columbia, so I didn't see any need for it. So I ended up not taking them. Now moving on, so I'm going to talk about my AP scores and stuff. So I took a total of 10 AP classes throughout high school, and I took 9 of those tests. My sophomore year I took AP Psych. My junior year I took AP Bio, AP Calc AB, AP Human Geography, AP Lang, and AP Micro. And then my senior year I took AP Chem, AP Gov, AP Stats, and AP Calc BC. And BC was the class that I did online. And this class was also the one that I didn't take the test for because I knew that I wasn't going to be able to commit myself 100%, so I didn't want to take that test. I kind of just did it for fun, which I don't know why I wanted to take a calculus class for fun considering how much I hated AP, but I did. Now my scores, so AP Psych I got a 5 on, AP Bio I got a 4, AP Calc AB I got a 3, AP Human Geography I got a 5, AP Lang and Composition I got a 5, AP Micro I got a 4, AP Chem I got a 3, AP Gov I got a 5, and AP Stats I got a 5. I wouldn't say to worry so much about AP scores, but definitely make sure you're taking a rigorous course load, because college would love to see that you're challenging yourself, and that's the main reason why I took all of these classes. It wasn't necessarily to gain college credit, because Columbia and a lot of Ivy Leagues don't even take these credits. And then since we're on the topic of APs, I was a, what is it called? AP Scholar with Distinction for 2 years, and I listed that on my college application. So my school uses a weighted GPA on a 100-point scale, so I'm not really sure how that'll translate to a 4-point scale, but my final GPA was a 100.47. I believe that's like around like a perfect 4.0. I should also mention that I was second in my class, since I included that in my application. So I graduated salutatorian. If you guys really want to know all of like the classes that I took in high school, then definitely comment that below and I'll read off my grades as well, and even Regents scores, because I live in New York and we take Regents exams after a bunch of high school classes. So if you guys want that, definitely comment below. Before I start on this section, I definitely want to talk about how I centered my application around a theme that concerned my extracurricular activities, and I connected most of these extracurriculars and outside activities to my overarching aspiration to pursue a career at the intersection of the law and neuroscience. That's like a tip I definitely want to tell you guys. It's something you should consider doing in your college application, because if I'm being honest, I think it's that theme that I was consistent with throughout my application that actually got me into Columbia over anything else, because it really showed my person, it showed my personality, it showed my interests. I kind of like combined everything just to make a story about myself. I know not everyone knows what they want to do going into college, and that's perfectly okay, but maybe if you can just take an extracurricular activity and kind of run with it, that would be really cool, and I think admissions officers really like that. With that being said, 3 that I focused on in my application were number 1, law team, number 2, my summer neuroscience program, and number 3, my creative writing club. I also had honor society. I didn't really talk about that though. And then I also had math club. I didn't talk about that either. And then one last extracurricular activity I did my freshman year was this club called Glamour Gals. It's basically another form of community service. The extracurricular that I considered to be the most important in my application was my involvement on my school's law team. I was on my school's law team for 3 years, my sophomore year, my junior year, and my senior year. and basically we competed in moot court and mock trial competitions, and we would usually do pretty good in the competitions. We would get pretty far, and I was the captain of the team for this past school year, so I included that in my application, and basically I talked a bunch about like leadership and just kind of like my interest in mock trial, and I really focused on like my progression from being a shy sophomore on the law team, where I couldn't do anything because I would get nervous in front of all the lawyers, I would get nervous in front of all of my teammates, and so I kind of like sucked. But then like after that year, after like all of the hard work that I put in to get better, I was like extremely better at it. I talked about how I gained a whole bunch of confidence from the team, public speaking skills, how all of that confidence weeded into all of my other classes, how I was able to give presentations and help people better in all of my other classes and even tutor, and basically how I went from like a super shy sophomore who couldn't even like speak a word without having her voice break, or taking like long pauses in between questions asked because I had no idea what to say, to being the captain of the team and guiding all of my other teammates on the team to really successful competitions. And I think that like kind of progression really was a theme that Columbia, my admissions officers, liked, and I took that and I ran with it. And then I talked about how my involvement on the law team, as well as my AP psychology class that year, really kind of like garnered this immense interest that I had in neuroscience, and I talked about how I wanted to work in the interdisciplinary field of neuroscience and the law. And then I also talked about this neuroscience program that I did the summer before my senior year. It was at Rockefeller University, an incredible institution, and I'm really thankful for my time there. I did a whole bunch of like research projects with graduate students, and I went to a bunch of lectures where professors talked about stuff like face perception. That was the topic of another one of my essays, where I just talked about like some of the research that I did over there, and I connected it to some of like life experiences, and that was like my second most important extracurricular in my application. And I had my creative writing club, where basically we published like magazines, like a fall and a spring issue every year, and I was the co-editor. Talked about how it's helped me on my law team, and in the future it'll help me manufacture manuscripts for like my neuroscience research that I want to do. I hope you guys can see how I kind of like connected my three most important extracurricular activities with that theme in my application. So for the Questbridge application essays, there were two of them. The first one surrounded the idea of overcoming a struggle you've endured sometime in your life, basically how you were able to grow from that struggle, and how that contributed to your success in academics. I wrote about financial struggles in my family pertaining to my mom, and I centered it around this day that I remember so vividly when I was in elementary school, where I came home and I saw my mom's jewelry box in the garbage. Basically, it was in the garbage because she had to pawn her jewelry in order to be able to afford to continue living in our apartment. I just constructed an essay out of that moment, and how it made me realize that I had an incredible opportunity with my education to build a better life for myself and for my mother. That was the gist of it. And then for the second essay, we had to write about So that's when I wrote about my summer neuroscience program, and I wrote about this experiment we did. I believe it was a behavioral experiment where we injected crickets with certain liquids and basically measured their ability to get through a maze. I basically connected the experiment to my grandmother and her prior drinking habits. For my Columbia supplements, there were two main ones, the biggest one being the Why Columbia essay. my Why Columbia essay, I just did a lot of research on the school, and I connected it to that overarching theme that I talked about before that I stuck to in my application, which is wanting to work at the intersection of neuroscience and the law. When you're writing that Why Columbia essay, definitely do a lot of research, because they're not going to accept you if it's a vague response, because that doesn't mean you actually really want to go to Columbia if you can't write a specific essay pertaining to why you want to go to Columbia, to specific elements of Columbia that makes you want to go there. So definitely do your research, but also make it unique to you. The second main supplement was about my law team, and that's where I got into. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really hoped it helped you in one way or another. I hope it didn't scare you, but rather gave you hope, saying that I wasn't a perfect student and I got accepted into Columbia. If you have any more requests on different videos, definitely comment that down below. I believe the next thing I'll be posting is a dorm tour, if I can even dorm on campus, because right now it's not looking so hot. Yeah, bye bye.